Published 20:08 Eastern Daylight Saving Time, the 23rd of April 2018. Updated 20:09 Eastern Daylight Saving Time, the 23rd of April 2018. There was a time when the most important thing in the possession of any young Scottish player intent on breaking for the border was a return train ticket. In the post-Bosman era, no one could honestly blame the droves who departed seeking fame and fortune in England's green and pleasant land. But there was something rather depressing about the sheer volume who sunk without a trace or swiftly came back having failed to make any kind of impact. When Scott Arfield became the latest hot-to-trot name 8 years ago, all the usual questions were raised. Another year or two at Falkirk would certainly have done him no harm. But having just broken through the magical 100-game barrier for the Barons, in the minds of those who knew best, the apprenticeship had been fully served. Burnley midfielder Scott Arfield has been linked with a summer move to Rangers. Lee Clark, the former Kilmarnock boss who was then in charge at Huddersfield, took an almost forensic approach to Arfield's recruitment. 6 times the former Newcastle man travelled north incognito to assess the midfielder. On each occasion, he departed with fewer doubts. Racing certainties in football are about as rare as hen's teeth. But by the time Clark told his board to press the button on an initial £400,000 deal, he knew with certainty that Arfield's impact on football in England would be significant and prolonged. At the time, up in Scotland, there were 2 players who we thought were very similar, Scott and Craig Bryson, who was at Kilmarnock at the time and ended up going to Derby County. Clark told Sportsmail, "I was looking at both of them but I could only sign one of them, so I went for Scotty. You're always taking a bit of a risk with any player, but I'd been up to Falkirk 5 or 6 times to watch him. I just felt he was outstanding and just knew he'd be a great signing for us. He was different class for me. He's a great athlete and a great lad. Just a terrific, modern-day box-to-box midfielder, who can play in so many positions." Historically, Scottish football has had an unfortunate habit of failing to marry talent and application. In Arfield's case, that was never an issue. Former Kilmarnock boss Lee Clark signed the midfielder during his spell at Huddersfield. From the first time he came under John Hughes' wing at Falkirk, the then Barons boss sensed he had the complete package in his hands. "At training, we used to match him up with Russell Otterby, who was just a genius," said Hughes. "Russell would drive Scotty mad by nutmegging him, but he'd always come back for more. His desire and hunger were incredible." Alan Carnaghan was doing some coaching with us at the time and, like Scotty, lived in Livingston. Alan would come in each day and say that he'd spotted him out running past his house the previous night. So he literally put the miles in. Clark's only regret regarding Arfield is he wasn't around long enough at Huddersfield to fully enjoy him. Sacked in the February of the player's second season, he watched from afar as the Terriers won promotion to the Championship via the playoffs. Curiously, the moment which ought to have been the launch pad for the player proved to be something of a false dawn. Arfield cut a peripheral figure the following season. Sean Dyche, by then at the outset of his remarkable Burnley odyssey, knew a player when he saw one. "He's really shown in the past 2 or 3 years that he's a Premier League footballer," said Clark. "He's done really well since he's been down in England. He's actually mirrored what's happened with Burnley. Both have gone from strength to strength." Amid it all, a mystery lurked. A regular with a Scotland under-21 side, Arfield's repeated omission from full squads was perplexing, to say the least. "He's really shown in the past 2 or 3 years that he's a Premier League footballer." Clark saw midfield may have been the area of the team for which Gordon Strachan was best served. But it seemed a characteristically odd decision. Tired of waiting on the phone ringing, Arfield eventually opted to play for Canada, the land of his father's birth. "I think Gordon should have capped him," said Hughes. "He'd have gone on to become a mainstay of the team. He's just one of those boys who'd turn up and say, 'What do you want me to do?' and he'd never let you down." Clark concurs, saying, "It's a bit of a blow for Scotland. Without a doubt, he'd have been able to complement the likes of Scott Brown and Darren Fletcher." A degree of intrigue also surrounds the fact Burnley are now prepared to let him walk out of the door for nothing, with the likely destination being Rangers. Arfield may only have featured in 20 of Burnley's 38 games to date this term, but he has played a significant role in taking the Turf Moor outfit from the second tier to the brink of Europe. Few dispute that their imminent loss will be Rangers' gain. "He's just an outstanding lad and a tremendous footballer," said Clark. "For me, it would be an outstanding signing for Rangers. He's very much a modern-day midfield player in terms of being box-to-box. His energy levels are ridiculous because he's got tremendous fitness. He did the business for Huddersfield and they got promoted to the Championship. He went on to Burnley and played a huge part in getting them promoted to the Premier League. He became a regular in their remarkable success story. Rangers fans make their feelings known during their premiership clash with Hearts. Hughes finds it hard to overstate the potential significance of Rangers closing the deal, saying, "They'd be killing 4 birds with 1 stone. He can sit in front of the defense, play out wider centrally and play off the front. He's just fantastically versatile. He was at least a 7 out of 10 in every game he played for me, for a club which seems to have specialized in the absurd for far too long. The likely signing of Arfield is not just a victory for common sense but potentially a signing which could make an appreciable difference as Rangers try to mount a serious challenge to Celtic next term. It's still going to be a big ask, isn't it? It's going to take more than just one signing," said Clark. "I watched the Old Firm game last weekend and the difference in quality between the two teams was reflected in the scoreline. It's going to be a massive rebuilding job for Rangers. But they can do it. If they can attract someone like Scott Arfield from the English Premier League, it shows they still hold big appeal. It's still a magnificent football club that can still attract top players. It's going to take serious investment but they are still a massive attraction in the game."